Hey guys, and now for another work in progress video on my MegaSize Zaku. Alright, so this work in progress video is going to be kind of just like a mix of just a lot of just little things, not so much like any one big thing, just because I'm just going to be showing you guys just a lot of the little modifications that I'm going to be making. So let's just start with these arms here. So here on this side you can see this is totally unmodified here, nothing done to that at all. On this side I've drilled out that hole there, replaced that with just one of these wave option parts. I have a bunch of these, so I'll probably be using a bunch of these around in different places on the kit. There and there, just gave it little details there instead. For these little holes in this section here, just drilled out those little holes. I'll add a little bit more plot plate to that as well. Also, this edge here is just like a edge of plastic that's one piece. Just to make the edge more defined, I went in with the knife, it was my hobby knife, and you can actually just kind of like drag that along the edge. You can use a chisel as well, but in this case, just using the hobby knife works pretty well, and that just makes the edge more defined. That'll make it look nicer later when I go to panel line it. The panel line will be nice and solid there, so it'll really make it look like it's actually two separate parts instead of just like a space in between. So basically, just to show you kind of quickly how you do that, you just go here and just go really gently at first, just a couple times, just to get your line going, and then just kind of moving along here. So once I've gone over it a few times at that angle, then I'll kind of switch it up and go like this kind of diving angle, just like 1 or 2 times more, just to make sure the opposite side of the edge is nice and clean. And then it's going to be looking, yeah, better, just more defined there. So also going to take these leftover just little thruster bells. These are also just from the Gundam Mark II, or from the GM anyway, that MG, the P-Bandai Master Grade Power GM that I built recently, had so many leftover parts, so set a bunch of these. What I'm going to do is just set these into the thrusters in here just to add more detail. So like some thruster bells inside thruster bells. So those will just be set in there like that, just to give that more detail. So you can see that'll look, I think, a lot more interesting. So another thing is that I picked this up today. This is some Miracle Pix. This is basically just epoxy putty from the Daiso, so it's like the dollar store. So this cost 2,001, so that's like $1.70, basically just under $2. There's a few different kinds. I got the kind that's just for multi-purpose. There's 20 grams of this, so 20 grams in this little container here. It cost, yeah, about $1.70, so that's pretty good. I have some like Tamiya epoxy putty, but I figure I wanted to try this because if it's really cheap, and if it works well, I'll use more of this in the future. So what I'm going to do with this is use this for the piping. So as I said, for these piping parts, I wanted to give it kind of a Thunderbolt style, just like cloth wrapping around it. So I will just mash some of that epoxy putty just around this, and then just kind of detail it. So I tested this just to see how it works, and this here, just on this scrap piece, just set some of that epoxy putty on here, and just kind of went at it just with a toothpick, just to kind of create this texture. And it worked really well, actually, so I think I'm ready to try this on this part. The thing about this stuff is that once it's mixed, it smells really bad, I think, just because of the chemical reaction. So I'll put on my mask here once I start mixing this. But you can see it's made here, so it's like the two parts are separated there. So you're just supposed to just like slice off a piece, like you're just slicing a roll cake or something. And then you just mix it up, and that will kind of set it into action. So not quite sure exactly how much I'm gonna need. This is an experiment, so I'm gonna guess about this much. That's about double what I used on that experiment piece, and that was quite a lot. So let's just go for it and we'll see here. So put this back in there. I suppose you should probably also be wearing gloves when doing this. I forgot that, so I'll put on some gloves before I do the next one. Kind of late now, unfortunately, but what I want to do is just start wrapping this around. I can still see some texture in there, so I'm gonna mix this up some more. Alright, not quite enough, so I need to quickly whip out a little more. Alright, so got that well covered, and yeah, so now I can go in. What I'm gonna do is just with my toothpick is just basically go around this and just adding a whole bunch of texture like this, and then that will make it look, I hope, like the wrinkled cloth effect. So let's see here. Alright, so after working that, left with this. I think it looks pretty good. It's not too bad. Definitely has a more interesting look. So I'll give this plenty of time to cure, and then what I can also do if I want to just make it look a little bit more kind of groovy is I can then just go in with a file and then just kind of like file it down in some places as well, just with a thin file. So I'd say this looks like it's gonna work pretty well. I can't really put it on there, and I was sure to go like kind of over the edge so that I can just trim that down. So when I plug that in to the head. So anyway, I guess that is gonna work. I'm just gonna hang this up to dry here. Alright guys, so that previous part that you've just been watching of this work in progress video was actually recorded like 3 months ago, where I was filming some work in progress at that time. I then took a break from this kit for a while, and a lot of people have been asking me what happened to this kit, and it is still work in progress, so I've been chipping away at it. It's just a really big, huge kit, so there's a lot to do on it, like with what I'm trying to do with it. So just show you some parts here that I have been working on. Here is an updated look at, for example, the shoulder armor. So I've got these caps put in here. Those just circle pieces of plot plate I set in there, and then just jammed some putty up in there behind there just to make sure those are nice and solid. Added some little pinholes in here, added these extra little bars on there, just some little rivet details. So I added those in. I think I showed this before, but just in case I didn't, those are just these from Wave. They come in 3 different sizes, 3mm, 2mm, and 1.5mm. So nice little kind of different shaped rivet details. For the shoulder armor, or for the shoulder parts, the upper arm I should say, so this would be the front side. I got some vents, and then just had to scribe these little latches in there. Here's what that looks like just kind of originally. So you can also just drilled out those little holes there. So I had to scribe, there's that kind of mark there, but I had to scribe it down a little bit farther and then added just with the little plot plate. I think it's just a 1mm by 1mm plot plate stick like this, just square rod. Just cut off pieces to fit in there. And then just did a little panel lining just to check my scribing, just make sure my scribing looked clean enough. And then on the back side, just setting these little armor panels. So it's basically, for the most part, what I've been doing, just kind of adding bits here and there. So here's what I'm working on with the torso. Working on these parts here on the top, where I'm kind of adding some just little tubing. That is just some pieces of just epoxy putty, just rolled up and set in for some tubing there on the top of the chest. Drilled out this section here, added this little machine gun there in the front, added these little vents here on the front, again just adding small little details here and there. Here on the front skirt, added this cutout section here and some of this brass mesh, that's what that would be. And also here on the arms, I talked about this before, I wanted the arms to not match. so that they would look like one had been replaced. So here's what I'm working with for, this would be like the arm that's going to be a different color. So it looks like it's sort of like a temporary part or like a replacement arm or something like that. So the upper arm is just, all the corners are rounded, gotten rid of this detail there on the sides, that's just filled in with putty. So I'm going to add something else here to the side. This is not entirely done yet. I'm just kind of working with this, just cut out some sections there at the top, cut out this big section here in the center of the forearm, replace that with just a couple of spare parts. Those are actually just spare parts from the Psycho Zaku. Here on the backpack, this section was like all closed off there. Just cut that out because there's this detail underneath. So I'm going to go in and just add some more detail on there. That's not done yet. Added these little bits onto here, the white bits onto the top of that. That was just those kind of very flat thruster bells in there. So now I think they have a little bit more depth in there. And that's kind of it for the most part. I just wanted to do a couple of demonstrations of what I've been doing. So like I said, on this one here, this is the arm. This is the top of the arm part that's going to be inside this shoulder part, so I'm not going to worry about adding this detail on this arm because it's never going to be shown. I mean, when this shoulder arm is actually plugged on there, then you can sort of see the vents poking out the bottom, so I did want to make sure I added that detail, but those other parts are not going to show unless the shoulder armor is set like that, and it's never going to be like that. So just gotta worry about this arm where the shield is gonna be mounted on there, so this will actually show it on the back as well. So now I'm going to do this on the back. I have been doing some scribing practice with this kit, and I've gotta say, from just my first kind of big experience doing any sort of substantial scribing on a kit, it's hard to get used to. It's really hard to get used to. You really have to work really slowly, steadily, carefully, and I'm just really not good at that. So yeah, it's really taking a lot of getting used to, but I think I am slightly getting used to it. So what I've got here is just some dynamo tape. Just looks like this. People use all sorts of different kind of tape. I actually think there's probably better options than this. I want to maybe try out something else, but in the meantime this is what I have, so I'm using it. It works all right. And then here I've got a MadWorks chisel. This is a 1.2mm chisel. If you guys remember, I got a nice set of chisels from MadWorks, so I have been using them. And just so that I would be able to compare, I did also grab a few BMC chisels. So like for example, this is a much larger one. This is a 2mm scriber here. I used that just recently for scribing out that detail. It's going to be kind of hard to see because of the glue that's in there, just to kind of smooth that out. But yeah, from just my limited experience so far, the BMC chisels and the MadWorks chisels seem just about the same. Like, I don't know, if I wasn't really familiar, if I would be able to tell the difference in them. The quality of both of them seems very, very good. So I've been using some chisels, and then just the smaller ones was using this one. This MadWorks 0.3mm is the kind of matching size for all the panel lines on the kit. So for anywhere where I wanted to scribe a small line, I've been using that one because that matches what's already there. So anyway, it's just a matter of going really slowly and carefully, and just going away at it bit by bit by bit by bit by bit, and just very lightly scraping away at it, and it takes a long time, and you then have to probably clean up a bunch still too. So again, don't consider this to be a tutorial on scribing, because I'm still very, very much new myself, and this is really hard to do on camera. So as you can see, I'm starting to get the outline of the kind of extra section that I wanted to add to that. It's not completely straight, it's not completely, definitely not deep enough yet, but so this is what I've been doing, just kind of getting the kind of a general shape there, and then I'll just start to clean it up as I'm working at getting it to the right depth and shape that I want. So it's looking still a bit rough, but about right. So I can take this dynamo tip off, just give that a little bit of a sanding, and I can see where that side's not quite straight, so I need to fix that a little bit more. Okay, and yeah, let me just say that I'm glad this is on the back of the shoulder, because that's not very straight. But again, yeah, I'm still very much a beginner when it comes to scribing and chiseling, so just have to bear with me with that. I think in the end it's going to look fine when it's all painted and everything. It's going to also have a little bit of weathering in there, so if a couple of like edges aren't exactly straight, I mean, we can just chalk that up to it's a little bit of damage there. So now what I want to do is I cut my little tiny pieces of 1 by 1 millimeter rod that I'm going to just place in there. So I just need a little bit of extra thin, extra cement from Tamyang. Just gonna drop that guy in there, and then I want to set it into place in the center. Like that, one down, and there we go. That is how it's done on the very amateur level. So, but again, yeah, I think it looks alright. It's going to be passable when you got this huge model kit. I don't think we're going to see very, very minuscule defects like that. But again, it's a very slow learning curve, that scribing. Next, just want to show you how I went about adding in this detail there, that cutout space with that mesh. So that is an 8mm square. Here I've got this Hasegawa scribing tool. This is also something I've had some trouble so far getting used to, but I think it just takes some time. So the 8mm is there. So what I did was just line that up. So I've got to set that up, lined up in the corner, and then just using some tape to tape that down. The thing that I found difficult about using this kind of scribing template is, number one, just getting it to stay where you want it to. You really got to tape it down good. And I found that already to be easier said than done on this giant 1/48 scale kit, so I can't imagine using this on anything smaller, even like a master grade. I think is going to be quite the trick. So if you guys know of or have any suggestions on good ways to do that, let me know. The other thing is the rounded corners. So what I'm using here is just a kind of just pin tool, so it's just a straight point on there, and basically what I want to do is just trace the shape, because then I'm not actually going to use a scriber to scribe that. That's actually what I originally tried to do, and I was having so much trouble with it that I just kind of gave up. But like if you're using a scriber like this, where it's just like a small scriber to scribe a panel line, really difficult to get that around that curved corner, because this is not a straight 90-degree right corner there. A little bit of curve to that, or like even if I was scribing like a circle or something, really don't know how I'd go about doing that with a scriber like this. And with a straight point like this, it's not really giving you exactly the width that I would want. So anyway, like I said, so basically what I'm going to do is just going to be using this just to scribe the outline. So again, just going very slowly and just going at it with many passes. Okay, then take that off. You can see that's basically there. And just a little bit of sanding to clean that up so I can see that nice and clearly. Then I just use the drill to drill out that space, so I'll just drill in one of the corners and then just go in and do a little bit more, and eventually that we'll be able to clean that up. There's the corners drilled out. Now just do a couple more holes between there, and then I can just cut that roughly. Alright, so that's all gone. Now obviously you need to clean that up, so here's where that outline is going to be really important to me, because now I'm just going to slice away at this with a hobby knife. Again, you could do it with a file, would maybe work probably well, but I just feel comfortable doing this, and just sort of slicing away until the edge matches that line, then I know that's the right shape. Alright, so that's pretty close. Still needs a little bit of cleanup there, so I will hit this with a chisel at least, or sorry, not a chisel, but a file just at least in the corners, so with a round file just to make sure those corners are round. Alright, so that's all cleaned up and looking well enough, I suppose. So before I set in the mesh, one other thing I do want to do, besides just cleaning up some of this mess, is also add the little detail there, the little rivet detail. So because I'm going to set the mesh with super glue, it's going to be hard to touch this part. I'm going to be worried about the super glue, so I want to drill this out first. As usual, just going to mark the center of that as best I can, so make sure the drill is going to be centered in there. Then just drill out this guy. There we go, that's out. And then I'm using the 2mm piece here, that little guy. These are really tiny and very easy to drop and have them disappear into the abyss, so be very careful. So just as these are small and very easily lost, they're very difficult to handle. Now I also have very huge fingers, which makes it hard, but I just find with trying to use tweezers to set those, it just doesn't really work either, because the tweezers, if you just pinch it the wrong way, then it will go flying and then it's definitely lost. So yeah, fingers hard, but seem to be working. So here's what I usually do. I'll set it in just enough so that I know that it's in there. Then I'll go and give it just a little bit of glue around there. Then instead of using my finger to press it in the rest of the way, I'll just use the back end of my hobby knife. So I feel like I have a little bit more control. Also, if there's like any residual glue around there or something, I don't want that on my finger. That'll be more messy. It's easier just with the back of the knife. I want to make sure I match the depth with the opposite side, and that looks about right. Okay. Alright, so got my mesh piece here. I'm just going to set that in to where that should be, covering the back there. Then go ahead and just hit that with a little bit of super glue. Just a bit in the corners there so that I know that that's held down. Alrighty, so that is set enough, and so here is what that's going to look like on the front. Still kind of a lot of bare section there that I maybe could add something more. I maybe will, maybe not. I haven't quite decided yet, but at least at the moment, oh sorry, that's totally off screen. That's done. Need to pay attention to what I'm doing here. But anyway, that's pretty much what I'm doing with this kit. A little bit of scribing, a little bit of cutting, a little bit of drilling here and there, a little bit of adding on little bits and pieces, little option parts and things like that. So I'm basically just going to keep hacking away at this. Pretty much most of the upper body is kind of done-ish, but yeah, it's slow progress, but I'm progressing along now. Now this is kind of like my main thing that I'm working on, so I should be able to get this going and hopefully get this done, or at least get it to painting soonish. So that's it for this work in progress video, guys. Thank you for watching. See you next time.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.